Imagine moving across the world at age 10. To some of you, that may sound like a dream come true. To fifth grade me, an international move was the worst thing that could possibly happen. I would be leaving the woman who babysat me for my whole life, every friend I had ever had, and my entire family. Determined to escape my despicable fate, I tried every trick in the book to convince my mom to stay. I even saved up $20 in an effort to bribe her. Though my plan seemed flawless at the time, I did not succeed. 4 months later, I miserably sank into my dark blue seat on a Delta flight to Atlanta, where I would board my connecting flight to the Netherlands. Immediately upon our arrival to Amsterdam, the rain began to fall, which I remember vividly because it obscured the tears falling down my face. Thus began the first of 4 years in my favorite place on the planet. Surprisingly, the aspects of Amsterdam that I now treasure were also the most jarring part of my transition. For example, when I left Louisville in 2014, gay marriage was still illegal in Kentucky. However, less than a month after I moved to my new home in Amsterdam, the city celebrated its annual Gay Pride Parade. The streets around the city were an explosion of color. There was confetti everywhere. Revelers in all of their glory floated down the canal in my front yard. Genitalia-shaped balloons, floats, and hats swarmed in front of our house. A sign reading, "Drop pants, not bombs," hung on the boat docked across the canal, and drag queens strutted through the streets. I was flabbergasted. I was so ignorant about the LGBTQAI+ community that I had watched 2 girls making out a week prior, and my brain translated that interaction into an admiration of their friendship. As you might expect, I was utterly confused. However, even with all of the vibrant displays of pride, I was most struck by the happiness clearly displayed on every person's face. That happiness gave me hope. And that day became the first I was happier to be in Amsterdam than Louisville. However, the happiness did not last. The transition was extremely difficult for me. Since kindergarten, I had gone to collegiate, so I was terrified to make new friends on my first day of school. I even pondered just not making any friends. I was so scared. However, my terror was outweighed by the desperation that comes from a young girl whose only friend is her 65-year-old next-door neighbor / Japanese antique shop owner. Although he had a sparkling personality, I found myself in need of friends my age. Those of you who went here for lower school probably remember me as one of the nicest kids in the world. I was perhaps even as nice as Elizabeth Hellman or Ayanda Sutu. The kids in Amsterdam were not so nice. They cussed me out all the time, using words I didn't even know the meaning of. It was really tough to make new friends, especially because on the first day of school, I happened to forget my laptop, so I happened to look for my parents, happened to get lost, happened to cry, and happened to be late for my first class. This all might have been okay, had it not been for my mom's words when she dropped me off. "I don't think Lily is going to tell you this, but today is her birthday." The class immediately began to sing to me in Dutch. I was terrified. "Lang zal ze leven" was not a phrase I was familiar with. I made it to my desk and sat down, my face redder than Tenley Sorgel or Molly Stevens has ever been, and tried to quietly outlive my shame. It doesn't sound that bad, I know, but it was my first day at a new school, and it was bad enough that people reminded me of it for years, lest I forget. As I slowly started to make friends, I began to explore the city. When my grandmother visited, we went to the Anne Frank house. Though this may surprise some of you, I had no idea who Anne Frank was before touring her house. And once I found out, I was appalled. I had never heard of the Holocaust. I had no idea that such a tragedy had occurred. I remember crying silently as I watched video accounts of her friends talking about her and their own lives in concentration camps. I was horrified. How could such a horrible thing happen in a city I had just seen radiating happiness? That moment in that house was where my passion for social justice was born. That outrage and sadness I felt for Anne Frank fueled my desire to stop anything like that from ever happening again, and drove me to want to protect the unfiltered joy I had seen weeks earlier. In history classes, I learned about the injustices people have faced around the world, covering everything from genocide to fast fashion-induced wage slavery. I also learned about environmental issues such as sustainability, pollution, and overfishing. The point is, I became more aware of the world around me, and I have since worked to make it a better place in whatever ways I can. For example, I attended Pride in Louisville. To be frank, it did not hold a candle to Pride in Amsterdam. There is something about a preacher yelling that your love is a sin that puts me off. Nevertheless, it was good to see most of the people celebrating love and happiness. The sun has begun to shine for me in Louisville, Kentucky. I've been through the storm, and I'm ready for the rainbow.
For the past 17 years of my life, my mom and I have had highs and lows, but mostly highs. However, when we do have lows, they're pretty low. My mom and I can butt heads quite a lot. When I was little, my favorite pastime was messing with items, toys, or candy in the grocery store in order to annoy my mom. Once, I actually managed to shoplift a Reese's candy bar. However, when she heard me opening the wrapper, she flipped out on me saying, "Ayanda, do you want to go to juvie?" Mind you, I was around 6 at the time. Of course, she had to tell me to return the candy because she wants me to be a good citizen of the world, as she calls it. My mom has taught me different lessons for the past 17 years. These compiled lessons allowed me to realize the material I had for a senior speech. For those interested about my mother, I'll be informing you all about her. This is the guide to living with my mom. Chapter 1. Obviously, I do the basics to keep myself healthy and clean. However, my mom has other thoughts. My toes are not the most attractive because I played club and high school soccer. So my mom will obviously point out my horrible looking feet saying, "Ayanda, your toes look like they belong to a witch." Now, most of y'all may not recover from a roast of that degree. However, here's what I do to recover. Rule 1, I always listen to her. This means I do hear her comment, but I do nothing to solve the issue at hand. Mind you, this method is not applicable to all problems that will arise. Now we're at chapter 2. I'm not the biggest consumer of food. Well, besides junk food, of course. I eat food, but to my mom, I don't really eat much. For example, when we head to Panera, I eat the roasted BLT sandwich. I'll eat most of the sandwich because I enjoy it. However, I usually don't eat the crust. When my mom sees the remains of my sandwich, she says, "You eat like a bird." The response is to not force yourself to eat more. Just nod your head and agree to the comment. That way, she knows you heard her. Chapter 3. Now you may be wondering, do I think about boys? Yes, believe it or not, I don't just think about school all the time. My mother knows that I like boys, however, she thinks I may not pay attention to how I conduct myself in front of them. For example, my diet intake does not reflect the stereotypical teenage girl, like eating salad or avocado toast. For me, pizza is the way to go. My mom does not agree with my thinking. She tells me, "What guy will want a girl that eats like you? Always eating pizza and mac and cheese?" So this roast hits deeper than any other. I always think, do I sacrifice my eating habits for a guy or continue to eat junk food? Well, I continue to eat junk food. This rule is crucial to living. This rule is crucial to surviving my mom. Instead of listening to her, I continue to eat junk food and I actively incorporate exercise into my life. This helps my mom understand that I can combine both to live a healthy lifestyle. Basically, the rule is just to continue eating unhealthily. I think that over the years, my mom has accepted that my meals aren't the healthiest. However, I've come some ways. If you talk to me at 9 years old, I would say my favorite meal is fries and chicken tenders. Now, I've added more protein, fruits, and dairy to my diet with the help from my parents, but mostly my mom. Now, my mom isn't always that bad. Sure, her delivery can be a bit harsh, but that's how she is. People may think my mom is a bit loony or blunt, but she wants the best for herself and family. Mom, I know that I don't tell you this as much as I should, but I do love you very much. I love the way you aren't afraid to be your true self, and it shines in how you conduct yourself for others. You're an emotional person and you think that's a bad thing at times, however, it isn't. You put yourself in the place of others and are empathetic. I know that I can always count on you for anything. Thank you, Mom, for all you do for me and others. This has been my guide to living with my mom. Thank you.